Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello. In the previous module, I introduced the concept of a product system and we saw an example of how to develop a product system. In this particular module, we will focus on another very important concept of system boundary. This is again a recap. We are still focusing on the goal and scope definition step, which I have mentioned that is conceptually very important, although not quantitative. So in the previous module, when we developed a product system for a mobile phone, I mentioned this point that in order to do a truly comprehensive life cycle assessment, your product system could be very large, especially when you start looking at these indirect contributions such as manufacturing of the equipment that is used for manufacturing a certain input to the product, the mining related to that equipment, and so on. Similarly, for transportation operation, we should ideally consider the manufacturing of truck, which will require again us to consider tire manufacturing, steel manufacturing, electronics manufacturing, and so on. So this can become very large. So the question is how to address this. Now, some of the challenges if you want to do a truly comprehensive LCA, the problem is, first of all, data availability could be an issue. And going back to the example that we developed, let us say I am doing LCA of a mobile phone. So as per the life cycle philosophy, I should consider the emissions because of truck manufacturing, which will need me to consider tire manufacturing step, rubber manufacturing, and so on. So it's quite possible that I may not know the input output data related to rubber manufacturing. It could be because I don't know where it was manufactured. The manufacturing facility may not actually report the numbers, and therefore the data may not be available. So that is one challenge with a very comprehensive product system. The second challenge is computationally it becomes very difficult. We will see subsequently in this course the computational part of LCA, and these are essentially matrix operations. So if you start adding lot of components to your product system, your matrix operation becomes very difficult and you may not actually be able to solve the problem. So in that case, what to do? Ideally, as per life cycle philosophy, you should consider as much as possible, but you may encounter these challenges. And that's where the concept of system boundary comes in. System boundary identifies the components or steps that are to be considered in the calculation. So going back to the example that we saw for the mobile phone, you may say that I will only consider certain components and I will ignore certain components. Now that is not ideal, but you may be forced to do it because of the challenges that I mentioned. So let us look at the concept in a little more detail. So this is a very generic picture of a product system, and it illustrates the concept of system boundary. So this box here, which is identified as the system boundary, is shown, and what this means is all the steps and product system components inside this boundary are to be considered for life cycle assessment. So I may be doing this for a particular product which is not mentioned here. It's a very generic diagram. So for this particular product, when I am doing life cycle assessment, I am going to consider only these steps, and it shows that there might be certain other inputs which are needed to produce this product, but I am not considering those in the calculations. Again, this could be because of the couple of reasons I mentioned on the previous slide. So that is essentially the concept of system boundary. It clearly tells you what is to be considered and what is to be not considered in the calculations. I will illustrate this using some examples. So this is an example of biofuels. So this is from our own work. So this was the LCA study that was done for the manufacture or production of biofuel ethanol from sugarcane bagasse. And this dashed dot line is the system boundary that we had considered. So it clearly shows that I am considering sugarcane farming, transportation and biorefinery steps. For the farming phase, I am considering fertilizer production, pesticide production. So I am considering all the emissions upstream of the production of the fertilizer. Similarly, I am considering all the components of manufacturing of different chemicals that I need in the biorefinery. But it also shows that what I am not considering. It acknowledges that diesel manufacturing requires crude oil extraction, but that is outside of the scope of system boundaries. So whatever number that I will come up with in the end will not consider the emissions because of crude oil extraction. Similarly, LSHS is a low grade fuel oil that is used in boilers. So production of that LSHS is not considered in the system boundary. Let me take another example related to municipal solid waste management. This is again coming from our study, which is mentioned at the bottom. So here the objective was to do life cycle assessment of management of municipal solid waste. So the municipal solid waste is segregated into non-biodegradable and biodegradable. The biodegradable component goes for composting and it generates compost. The non-biodegradable goes for landfill and it generates some liquid discharge, which is known as leachate. So here again the dashed line shows the system boundary. It says that we are not considering the generation of municipal solid waste, also the door-to-door collection. Door-to-door collection is outside of the system boundary. So any emissions because of that are not considered. But all these other steps which are inside this box are part of the system boundary. So there is no standard rule as to what should be the system boundary. Ideally, it should be as large as possible, going by the life cycle philosophy. However, because of the challenges that I have previously mentioned, you may have to limit yourself. But where to limit, there is no standard rule. It has to be a subjective decision. And it often leads to a lot of controversies, a lot of problems, because the same product LCA might be done with different system boundaries and it can give you different results. So whenever you are looking at a result of an LCA study, you should be very careful in understanding the system boundary, and that will allow you to interpret the results better. Typically what happens is when you go away from the major production step. So let me go back to the biofuel example. So this is the major production sequence of biofuel. So the sugarcane farming requires fertilizer production. So this is kind of a second level contribution. Fertilizer production will require some upstream steps. So that is the third level. So generally, as you go away from the main production line or value chain, the contribution tends to go down. That is not necessarily always true, but that is generally true, and therefore it is oftentimes okay to ignore contributions that are far away from the main value chain. But as I said, this is not a standard rule. There are always exceptions, and it's a subjective decision. Now, related to the product system, there are certain other things that I want to discuss, certain other concepts. The first is a unit process. So unit process is the smallest element considered in the life cycle inventory analysis for which input output data are available. So in the mobile phone example that we saw, we identified several boxes. These were things like diode manufacturing, LCD screen manufacturing. So we are saying that each of those steps is like a black box for us, and I know the input output data for that box. For example, I know all the resources that are needed to manufacture a diode, and I also know all the emissions that are coming out from diode manufacturing step. So that becomes a unit process. So unit process is the smallest element for which we know the input output data, and that we will use for LCA calculations. So I've just identified couple of unit steps, unit processes here for the municipal solid waste LCA study, but all these boxes are actually unit processes. So you can say that a product system consists of several unit processes connected with each other. Another important concept is the elementary flow. So elementary flows are defined as material and energy entering the system which has been drawn from the environment without previous human transformation. So in this example of municipal solid waste, you may be using air for drying in the composting pit. So air is naturally available. Air is not something that is manufactured by human intervention. So air is an example of an elementary flow. Similarly, water. So water might be used for leachate treatment or it might be used for some other operations. So water, again, if it is drawn from nature, let's say it is drawn from river or lake, then it hasn't gone through any human intervention and therefore it is an elementary flow. However, if you process water and then use it, then it is not an elementary flow anymore. Similarly, any emission that you give out and which is directly given or released to the environment without subsequent human transformation is also an elementary flow. So for example, all the gaseous emissions, liquid discharge, because they are given out to the environment or the ecosystem and we don't actually use them or do anything with them, therefore they are also considered as elementary flows in the life cycle assessment terminology. The third important concept is that of product flows. So product flows basically are defined as outputs of a product system, and a product flow represents the connection of a product between product system. So one example of a product flow is compost. So for this MSW management step, if you do composting, you get compost, which is a useful product. So compared to gaseous emissions, I am actually using the compost for something. So it's a product that is usable and therefore it's known as a product flow and not an elementary flow. Similarly, all these intermediate arrows will also be that of a product flow. For example, electricity. So electricity is generated. You have gaseous emissions which are elementary flows, but electricity itself is a useful product and therefore electricity is a product flow. So product flow could be something that is coming out of the system or it could be something that is connecting two different unit processes. You can also have product flows that are coming from outside of the product system. For example, fuel. Now in this particular LCA study, fuel manufacturing was not part of the LCA calculation because it is outside of the system boundary, but it is still a product flow to the system because it is something that was developed by humans or because of human intervention as compared to air or water. So that is the distinction between a product flow and an elementary flow. The final important point is related to reference flow. So let me explain that again by taking the municipal solid waste management example. The functional unit in this particular study was 1 ton of municipal solid waste. So this municipal solid waste is generated and it is handled along using this mechanism. The functional unit was 1 ton. Now in reality, you won't have any composting or landfilling facility that treats 1 ton of waste. These facilities are typically much larger. So Mumbai, for example, generates roughly 9,000 to 10,000 tons per day of municipal solid waste. So this number of 1 ton of MSW is kind of arbitrary. It's actually just a basis of calculation. So what that means is you have to scale all these numbers for 1 ton of MSW. So you will actually go to a facility which might be treating several thousand tons of MSW and you will need to find all these numbers. How much of the municipal solid waste goes for composting, how much goes for landfilling, and those numbers will be hundreds or thousands of tons. But you will have to scale all those numbers with reference to 1 ton of MSW. So if I am sending 1 ton of MSW for processing or management, what is the value of all these different flows? So the example here is what I have highlighted. 1 ton of MSW has 0.51 tons of biodegradable component which goes for composting, 0.43 goes for landfill, and 0.06 is recovered and recycled. So these numbers that are highlighted are reference flows because they are, in reality you won't have 0.51 tons being sent for composting, but this is for 0.51 tons for 1 ton of MSW, which is our functional unit. So when you develop a product system, when you get the data, you have to do this scaling. And once you do this scaling, the flows that you get, product flows that you get, are known as the reference flows. So now since this module is focused on system boundary, it is important to understand the impact of system boundary. It is often a very important aspect of an LCA study. Let me give you a simple example of an electric versus conventional car. If I do an LCA study with the system boundary limited to car operation, driving of a car, then there is no question electric car is going to be better because there are no tailpipe emissions. But if I expand the system boundary to include the electricity manufacturing phase, then the result might be different. So this is an example of how expanding the system boundary can significantly affect your result. Another very interesting example is related to biofuels, and there is a concept called indirect land use change. So the concept is like this. Let us say without biofuel production, this is the way land is used. So there are three different crops grown, and there are certain forest areas. Now if I want to promote biofuels, and if I start going biofuels on agricultural land, then maybe because of the profits, the crop X will be replaced by biofuel crop. This crop X then will move to a land where crop Y was produced. Crop Y will then move to land where crop Z was produced, and crop Z might actually move to land where forest was there. So if I do an LCA study only on the biofuel production step here, I will actually miss these connections. But if I expand the system boundary to include these land use changes also, it is quite possible that the life cycle impacts could be much higher, because I am converting a forest into an agricultural land, which is a carbon emitting step. And it has been shown, there are reports which have shown that this indirect land use change can have a significant effect on the sustainability of biofuels or life cycle impacts of biofuels. So based on the system boundary that you consider, you can have cradle to grave approach or cradle to gate approach. So these are different approaches that you can have, or different scopes essentially. Ideally you should do a cradle to grave study, but in some cases cradle to gate could be more appropriate depending on the application and data availability. So the important learning outcomes of this module are, first of all, system boundary governs the scope of calculations. It decides what is to be considered, what is to be not considered in the calculation. Second, system boundary can significantly change your LCA results, and therefore this is a very, very important step, and you need to interpret LCA results by looking at the system boundary. Third, LCA calculations require identification of different types of flows. In this module, I will focus on the second step of life cycle assessment, which is inventory analysis. It's also called as life cycle inventory analysis. This is the overall life cycle assessment framework. We have previously looked at the first step, where the focus was goal and scope definition, which included identifying the functional unit, the system boundary, and the product system. Once all these steps have been completed, the next step is the inventory analysis step, and this is where all the calculations happen. So this is a very important step because it will affect the results of your LCA. So to go back to the original idea of life cycle assessment, the idea was to consider all the various steps involved in the life cycle of a product, starting from material extraction to waste management, and quantify the resource use, emissions, and waste generated. In the first stage of goal and scope definition, we identified the functional unit and essentially identified this system boundary. So in the next step, our focus is on identifying and quantifying the resource use, the emissions generated, and the waste generated. So when you are working on the life cycle inventory phase, you have to start focusing on each and every box in your product system. So this is a very generic representation of the life cycle, and one of the phases is manufacturing phase. Now manufacturing phase itself will have several additional steps, several details, because a manufacturing will represent a manufacturing facility, and that facility will have several sequential operations or stages. So here the goal is to identify the resources used, emissions generated and waste generated in the manufacturing phase. As I have said, the manufacturing phase itself will consist of several operations. So here I have listed some representative operations. Obviously this will differ for each facility. It will depend on what kind of manufacturing or processing you are doing. So let us say this particular manufacturing facility has these steps, including size reduction, some heating which requires a boiler, then the reactor, followed by separation, followed by storage. So what we have to do now in the life cycle inventory stage is to focus on each of these boxes, because these are part of the manufacturing phase, and manufacturing phase itself is a part of the overall product system. And you can go down further. For example, the separation system itself can consist of multiple subunits. It could be a combination of a heat exchanger followed by a distillation column, followed by some separation or settling unit, and so on. So when you develop a product system, you will have to clearly define your product system in all the details for which you want to do the calculations. So eventually you will have to go down to the level of unit process, and for each of those boxes which are representing your unit process, you will have to do this kind of a calculation. So in this case, let us assume that this is the maximum level of detail we want to go in. So these boxes such as size reduction, reactor, separation represent your unit processes. So then the idea basically in the inventory calculation is to collect the resource use, emissions and waste generated data for each of these unit processes and do a simple addition. There will be some complications if your system has recycles and so on, but conceptually it is summing up all these values of resource used, emission generated and waste generated for each of these unit operations, so that you get the overall number. So in this particular generic example, after I do these calculations for each of the unit process, and when I sum it for all these 6 different unit processes, I will get the overall impact for the manufacturing phase. And when I do this for each of these stages, so what I have done for manufacturing stage, I will have to do the same for material processing, for material extraction, use phase and waste management phase. When I have all these numbers together and when I sum all of them, that's when I will get the true life cycle impact of a product. So I will get the total impact in terms of resources used, emissions generated and waste generated. So as I have already said, conceptually it is very straightforward. It is about mass accounting and summing up all the numbers for individual unit process. So this is a summary of the method or the step. Conceptually it is fairly straightforward. Of course, there are formal methods to do it. As I have already said, if your process has recycles or some interconnectedness in your process where step 3 depends on step 1, step 2 depends on step 5 and so on, then the calculations are not so straightforward, and there are systematic approaches. There is a matrix based approach to do inventory calculation which is based on linear algebra. We will see this approach subsequently in the course in detail. But the important challenges in the inventory calculation stage are, first, if your product system is really large, then computationally it becomes very difficult. Even if you are using matrix based approach or linear algebra based approach, if you have lot of unit processes, and this is very common, even a very simple, very small product system may have thousands of unit processes. And when you have thousands of unit processes, each with several inputs and several outputs, the calculation computationally becomes challenging. But this is more of a computational issue. A more practical issue from the application standpoint is getting data for all the unit processes in the product system. And I want to emphasize this by giving a couple of examples. So I will go back to the mobile phone product system that we had previously developed when we learnt about development of a product system. And we identified that these are the several unit processes that are part of the product system. And by the way, this is still a very simplified product system. I have ignored a lot of additional steps. But now, if I have to do life cycle inventory calculations, for each of these boxes, I will need to know the inputs and outputs. Now, if I am a company, I am representing a company which is in the business of manufacturing the mobile phone. Then this particular box, which represents mobile phone manufacturing, is the process that I am carrying out in my facility, and therefore I will have very detailed information or data pertaining to all the inputs and outputs that are part of this particular box. So that is generally not a problem. However, as we have already discussed, when you develop the product system, many of the upstream operations like silicon production, diode manufacturing, circuit board manufacturing will happen in other facilities. So a mobile phone manufacturing unit will directly buy certain products from another producer and use it in their product. So in the life cycle inventory calculation stage, the mobile manufacturing company or facility will also need to know all the input and output data for all these upstream boxes. So that is one challenge. So they will have to go back and talk to those vendors or providers who have provided them with the material and get the input and output data for their processes. So that is one challenge. The second challenge is many of the inputs such as electricity, diesel and so on are often again not these resources that are used in the facility are not often manufactured in the facility. And electricity is a very good example because many of the manufacturing facilities will buy electricity from the grid and use it in their production operations. So again, from a life cycle perspective, you will need to know the emissions because of electricity production, for which you need to again know what are the different stages in electricity production or a power plant, what are the inputs, what are the emissions in a power plant and so on. Another very good example is this plastic packaging input.